Speaking to three guys from Avid Technology, we've got Frank Capria. Now, Frank is the senior product designer. We've got Robert Russo, application specialist, and we've got Angus Mackay, who's the marketing manager. Okay, guys, I know Avid's been around for a very long time. You guys trailblazed nonlinear editing when it appeared in 1989, made a huge impact, revolutionized the world of editing. Here we are, 2 decades, more than 2 decades later. The editing scene is a very different scene, and yet Avid is still king. Avid rules Hollywood. Now, what I want to know from you guys is there's many alternatives. People don't have to choose Avid, and yet Avid still rules. What is it about Avid that's so good? Because I know editors that use Avid, they love it. They wouldn't consider anything else. And if anyone's going to be able to tell me what's so good, it's you guys. So who would like to begin?
Well, I don't mind taking a crack at it. I think that actually the best people to tell us what is great about Media Composer are Media Composer users. And the feedback that we get from them is that the reason they choose it is because of its stability, its professional features, its responsiveness, its ability to work either as a standalone editor or excel in a collaborative environment. And this is really important with so many of these large projects that are done with multiple customers, multiple people working on the same project. So workgroup editing with Unity, the media management with Interplay, rock solid media management within the app. These are all great reasons why customers use it in production. But I think that's a lot of the feedback that we get. You agree?
Absolutely. Right, and it's a lot of the native codec support and the native wrapper support that we have. We're not limited to one single codec or one single wrapper. And especially now with the Media Composer 5, we have an incredible amount of support for different wrappers, including QuickTime and Red.
That's a great point that Bob brings up. You were talking about what production was like, 20 years ago. Certainly file-based formats were not the norm that they are today. You're shooting here with XDCAM EX. With Media Composer software, you can actually connect directly to those XDCAM EX files and edit natively within Media Composer without a transcode or rewrap. And that's thanks to the AMA technology that the product teams have put into the product. So this is a real game changer. The ability to connect directly, immediately edit this material without having to transcode, rewrap, lock and transfer, no handling of the material before you start editing. This takes away the bottlenecks that have kind of been the obstacle to the dream that file-based workflows are supposed to deliver. So as Bob says, with version 5, we've extended that AMA support to include Red. So direct access to Red files, including all the color management that you want. And I think really big news for the indie community is our ability to support QuickTime files with Media Composer version 5. Now, this is not just Avid codecs of QuickTime, but any QuickTime file, including H.264 material from Canon 5D and 7D HDSLRs, ProRes material that could be either come straight out of Final Cut or any of the other devices on the market that generate that, such as AJ KeyPro, for example. And then, things like JVC cameras that record to QuickTime formats. All of this can now be read natively by Media Composer. So this is a really big improvement and, again, takes down those walls to getting the material in and working with file-based material.
Okay, now listen to what you guys are saying. It sounds that Avid, the Media Composer, which is what we're talking about, it just works. It works with everything, and it's got a really good system. But it's not just that, because others that use other systems might argue that. But what I think, and this is what I picked up from Avid editors, those using Media Composer, is that there's a particular workflow that the Media Composer offers. And once you know all those little ins and outs, you can fly around that system like you wouldn't believe. Now, Frank, I want to ask you specifically, because I'm showing my age here, but I remember a number of years ago, and I said this to you once before, you wrote an article comparing Final Cut Pro and Media Composer, and you said that Final Cut Pro was the sort of girl you like to take on a date, and Avid was the sort of girl you want to marry. Now, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot by saying that, but when we talk about, that's a metaphor that you used, but we're talking about longevity and the staying power and working with the system day in, day out all the time. So can you clarify what you meant by that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify that I've been married 23 years now, and the girl I'd like to date and the girl I'd like to marry are the same person. Yeah, I will say this. What Media Composer allows you to do, and what I was talking about, actually, I think that was 7, 8 years ago. What I was talking about then was that on competing editors, you can open them up and the UI just looked fresher. It was intuitive. You would reach for things, you would grab them, you would put them where you want, and it was a lower barrier to entry. There was less work involved. But what I liked about Media Composer is once you were getting serious and once you really had to craft a film finely, we had the tools in Media Composer available to us as editors to do really fine trims and really precise trimming. You know, I hit in, that's my in point. I hit stop, that's where it stops. If I wanted to trim 4 different tracks going in different directions, I could do that in Media Composer. I couldn't do it in any other editor. So that's what I meant. It was the editor you would settle down with. Now, that brings, let's clockwipe to, 2010. That's a lesson when I came aboard as a designer at Avid that I took with me and said, we have to appeal out of the box, to that 16, 18, 20-year-old who's just learning to put video content together. You shouldn't have to crack the manual. And I think some of the things we've added in version 5, such as our timeline interactivity, once again, we didn't just catch up to the competition. I think we surpassed it. You can now do more tactilely in the timeline than you ever could before, and I would say that you could do more than you can do in any other editor. And we now have direct manipulation tools that allow you to do very complex trims with a mouse drag. The cursors update to tell you exactly what's going to happen when you make that, when you click the button. Here's where that clip is going to go. So the system guides you through the editing process now. So I think we now attack it at both, and just like in my personal life, the editor I want to date and the editor I want to marry are the same editor.